I'm going to be talking about the Evans Gambit from White's perspective, with a focus on Black's move Bishop A5 on move 5, which seems to be the most popular response in that position. So we have E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, Bishop C5, and here the fourth move B4 is where the Evans Gambit starts. So Bishop B4, C3 is the main idea that White sacrifices the pawn on B4 to gain a couple tempi on the bishop here on B4 to get the C3 done, and then D4. Right? So we're sacrificing a pawn, sometimes two, to be able to take advantage of the center. C3, and now, like I said, Bishop A5. This is the most popular response in this position, and many believe also the strongest one. Now, in this position, it's possible to play both castle and queen b3, but the move d4 gives the highest chances for White to play for a win. Right, so we have d4, where Black takes on d4, and the move queen b3. Queen b3, clear idea to strengthen the diagonal a2 f7 and attack the weak point on f7 over here, making it harder for Black to castle in this variation. So right now, as you can see, White is down 2 pawns, but well, with the idea, the compensation being mostly about the fast development and quick threats. So queen b3, the main two responses for Black in this position are queen e7 or queen f6. But here's a nice little variation showing how Black gets punished for excessive consumption of pawns after d takes c3. There follows bishop f7, king f8, bishop g8. Right? Threat queen f7 checkmate. So if Black tries something like c2, which may look dangerous, all White has to do just plays king f1, right, avoiding the check. Now c takes b1 is impossible with a promotion of any piece because of the checkmate on f7. So Black just takes the bishop and knight g5. Again, same threat. Nothing works but d5. For example, if Black plays queen e7, then White mates in 3 moves: knight h7, king e8, queen g8, queen f8, takes and checkmate. But even after d5, here in this position, after queen f3, Black pretty much collapses into this kind of a position. With knight f3, and then with knight a3 leading to a very one-sided position with a severe initiative. So a nice example of what an Evans Gambit position can boil down to, and how dangerous it can be. But coming back to our main position, let me start. Like I said, Black's main options are queen e7 and queen f6. Let me start with a little less popular queen f6, and White castles to finish the development, leaving Black with a couple options here in this position. So let's examine the d takes c3 one more time, where Black is 3 pawns up. Bishop g5, right? We're getting another piece to action. Queen g6, and we're developing the knight, capturing on c3. Now 2 pawns down, severe threats remaining. This knight will typically be headed towards d5, some cases b5, and just by being on c3, it controls all the important squares. There is the heavy concentration here on the diagonal, a2 f7. There's some moves like knight h4 possible in some variations. The queen gets lost, right? It even seems like that the Black queen may get in trouble in some variations over here. So knight c3, the logical knight f6 put some pressure on d5, and white still plays knight d5. This pretty much demonstrates the spirit of the Evans Gambit, where white is down a few pawns for a severe initiative. For instance, knight d5, sorry. In this position after knight f6, the move is e5 first, right? So we're chasing the knight away on f6. Knight has to go to g4, and now knight d5 comes in, okay? And here's the position that demonstrates the spirit of the Evans Gambit, where white is down a few pawns for a severe initiative with multiple threats here on the board. And for example, let's check out the logical knight takes e5, takes, and f4. Okay, f4, activating the rook here in some variations from f1, all the open files, and black hasn't even castled yet. This position's already lost, as shown by this cool variation. Rook e1 takes, so we're sacking another piece here. King f8, right? All we need to have in mind is the weak black king. Bishop e7, and bishop c5, with a double threat of knight e7, right? Forking the queen, and rook e8 pretty much ends the game. So d takes c3 is not the best option here for black, obviously, as shown by this variation. A more challenging play arises after bishop b6. All right, so we're defending on d4 one more time. The bishop has no point of being on a5 because white king just barely castled, so it's not even pinning the pawn anymore. And in some cases, the bishop can be dangerous on the long diagonal a1 h8, as the rook on a1 may fall. And here in this position, we go a5. Right? If black takes, that's only to our advantage because the e file opens up. So queen f5. Now we capture with a very strong center, so black pretty much has to react immediately. Takes on d4, and we're getting our knight out to c3. Bishop e5, and bishop a3 leaves a beautiful compensation. It's a typical way of putting pressure on the black king. And again, with a very strong initiative, we have all the files open up for the rooks, and also a very practical advantage here in the Evans Gambit with white is that it's much easier to play with white, especially if the player is an attacking player and knows how to conduct initiative. So here, this position's already evaluated as objectively better for white. Let's check out a different option. Here on move 8, instead of bishop b6, an interesting try is d3 to release the pressure from the center, preventing the knight from b1 to entering the good square c3 and later being able to go into d5. A very typical way of sacrificing a pawn, kind of an idea from the Mora Gambit in the Sicilian defense, and also in a couple other gambits where black simply declines the other pawn sacrifice. d3, but white still gets his way after e5, queen g6, rook d1. Right, so we shift the queen here to the convenient square on g6 to be able to recapture with the bishop with a threat when necessary. d1, black tries to finish the development, and again, bishop a3. This time black makes it to castle, but leaves the uncomfortable knight on e7 pinned. Castles, now we're taking the pawn with a tempo. Queen has to go. Knight d2 again with a good position. So this, I wouldn't call it a winning position, but it's a very good practical position to play for a win, where again we're down a pawn, but our pieces are much better. If you look at the bishop on c8 here and the rook on a8, haven't made a single move yet, just chilling there behind the pawns. It's a great position to beat a stronger player. Okay, so queen f6 here on move 7 is the less popular choice, and most people believe that the move queen e7 leaves black with the best chances. This is the main move. White castles. Right, again, black has a couple fair moves over here, such as the move d6. There's also d takes c3. Again, a very risky, and there's a really cool variation here taken from a game from more than 100 years ago. We'll get to that. And then the move regarded as the best is the move bishop b6, which I'll discuss as last. So here in this position, this is kind of the key position. Let's look at the move d6. White simply takes on d4. Now again, obviously it's impossible to take on e4 because after bishop f7, the position becomes very uncomfortable where the king has to remain in the center. So black tries to continue the development, and after e5, or white again breaks through. White breaks through the black's part of the center. Again, leaves white with a very comfortable position and a strong initiative. Another possibility over here is the move bishop b5, with the idea that after bishop d7, we take on d4, similar setup. Now, if castle's queenside, that's only to our advantage, as we have all these squares here open for the rooks to come, right, on the b file, as well as here on the c file. So it could be even more dangerous for the black king to be on the queen side than to remain in the center. If black tries d takes c3 instead here on move 8, there is a very attractive and encouraging variation. Knight c3, knight f6. We're getting our knight here over to d5. Black has nothing better to do than just take it. Now we're opening the important e file with the uncastled black king on e8. Knight e5, take on e5, getting the bishop here on the long diagonal. Right, a8, h8, fantastic control. Queen g5 trying to guard the g7 pawn. h4 comes. We take on g7. Sack a rook on e8. King d8 is the only option. And then queen g3. Queen g3, so we're trying to deflect the queen from h4 that's guarding the diagonal. Here, queen has nothing better to do than take. And bishop f6 leaves an attractive checkmate down a queen. So the most important thing here about this kind of a variation is black is unable to sustain the pressure because of these pieces here that are just left behind the pawns, not doing anything, and the king remains very vulnerable. So like I said, the best option here for black, regarded by many, is the move after castling, is the move bishop b6. After bishop b6, white takes on d4, and then knight d4 is the main move, leading to the key position, I would say, of the whole of Evans Gambit, bishop a5 move. But one may ask what happens after knight a5. Also looks logical to trade this annoying bishop over here on c4. Queen a4, knight c4, queen c4. Or because of the center, the best move, play knight f6. And after e5, we got in a big trouble because the move knight e4 is impossible because rook e1 takes the free piece. And the intention d5, typical way reacting against e5 also doesn't work because of e takes f6. Again, leaves white up a piece. And even with a correct reaction here, the move d6, after either a4, a5 intruded, then knight c3, or knight c3 immediately. Again, the position is very good for white due to the central pawns d4 and e4. So c takes d4, and like I said, the main line, knight takes d4, takes on d4, bishop takes, and knight c3. Here, this is the like I said, the main position of the Evans Gambit. Black has a couple options over here after bishop d4, but mainly it's c6 or knight f6. Right, c6 is it's not the best reaction, and knight f6 is what the current theory, the current state of theory recommends. So let's look real quick at the move c6. It's kind of a dubious move. Bishop a3, right? The typical seizing the diagonal. Here one more time, threatening the queen. After d6, here again a very typical shot in the center, e5. Right? This position may seem like a long story, as it doesn't appear very clear how to just finish the game immediately. The game that the play is very easy. Here as the final file becomes open, and white is left with a severe initiative after the move e5. So let's look at the main move, knight f6. Again, same idea as c6 to control the d5 square, so white cannot jump with the knight over there. Leaves white with a couple choices, mainly the move knight b5, leading to a very sharp tactical line, ending in an unclear position with both sided chances. There is the little less straightforward bishop b2, or also bishop a3 deserves attention, also a very logical move. And the more recent choice, bishop g5, is used in a game between Mac Molnar and John Bartholomew, where white won a really cool game. Here on some tactical complications, but black didn't react correctly after the move c6, rook a d1, got in big trouble and lost. However, the move, kind of a counterintuitive reaction, queen e5, unpinning the uncomfortable pin over here of the knight on f6, leaves white, black, with a fairly good play. But again, the position is very complex. It has a very both-sided character. And after the move bishop f6, queen f6, knight d5, queen d8, white has options such as queen g3. Remember the double attack over here? Attacking the point c7, as well as preparing the move rook a d1, and then possibly putting some pressure here on the king side through the pawn on g7. Leaves white with a good play. Also, the move rook a d1 is very dangerous. But like I said, black holds, although with a very risky position. So it remains an open question what the further theory will say here. So these will be some of the modern themes in the Evans Gambit variation after the fifth move, bishop a5. And I look forward to covering some other moves here on move 5 that include bishop c5, bishop e7, and a little less frequent bishop d6. And thank you very much.